friends, and Mike is here, and he is back with his most ambitious commentary yet. We're going to do Marvel's The Avengers today, and I'm finally going to make good on my promise to deliver you something a little different, a little more current, and a little controversial. Because I don't share the same glowing opinion of this movie that a lot of people do. I think it's got a lot of flaws. I think it's a fun film, but I do want to, give you a warning, a little heads up before I go into it, because I'm going to give my own blunt opinion about the film. And when I started this commentary project, I knew I would want to do a lot of films I loved, and I love the first four films. But I also wanted to, try out some films that, not necessarily that I hated, because I don't hate the Avengers. I like a lot of it. But, films that I could criticize its faults and their strengths, and, have a dialogue, because I would love to have a dialogue with my potential viewers, I know a lot of people love this movie, and I see a lot to love in it, but I also see a lot of problems with it as well. And I hope we can have an intelligent conversation about it, and that, maybe play a little devil's advocate about the Avengers. I am paused on the flipping Marvel comic book pages, and we are watching the Blu-ray edition, in case you are wondering. I'm going to start the film in 3, 2, and 1. Here we see Marvel, and, you're going to ask me, am I a huge comic book reader? Here we go into the Tesseract Cube, which is probably the biggest MacGuffin to end them all. Paramount flowing over, and that ever constant use of the color blue in this movie. But you're gonna ask me, are you a comic book fan? Do you read comic books a lot? And to tell you the truth, I'll be honest with you, probably not as much as I should. I don't claim to be an expert. I love what comics I've read. I've read the big Frank Miller comics, the Batman, and I've read a lot of graphic novels, really, because I just find them easier to read than, just going into a whole comic book length. But that being said, I did sort of have a Cliff Note sort of knowledge about the Marvel and the DC universe, and I really like that line, and what can humans do but burn? That's really fun. And what I do admire about this movie is the villains. I don't think they're all that well developed, and they kind of have a half-assed plan for evil, just the typical Saturday matinee, nothing less than destroy the world. What is it? Thanos, his henchman, the other, and Loki with his Chitauri army. But it's fun. I really like Tom Hiddleston in this movie a lot. He's probably my favorite thing. And here we have S.H.I.E.L.D., Nick Fury coming out. And I remember seeing the original Iron Man, and that classic ending. I thought I'll go into my opinions about the other films in the Marvel Universe, but I'll say this. The original Iron Man is my favorite of the Marvel films. I think the reason it is my favorite is because it stands really well on its own. You know what I mean? It's got a story that can exist within the framework of the universe Marvel tried to set up, and but it's its own story. It's its own contained story. Tony Stark, he goes on a journey through the course of the film. And I feel here's Stellan Skarsgård, who's as Dr. Selvig, and he doesn't have his annoying two sidekicks from the first Thor, and with Natalie Portman and Kat Dennings. Boy, I did not like Thor: The Dark World. I thought that was Batman and Robin caliber bad, and it takes a lot to hate Stellan Skarsgård, but I hated him in that film. But he's pretty good here. It's kind of fun seeing that goofy pseudoscience, that pseudophysics. Here's Jeremy Renner as Hawkeye, and boy, he gets a pretty thankless job in this film. For all the praise Whedon gets for, juggling his cast, I really think he is kind of the ball that falls out of Whedon's hands of his script. Hawkeye kind of gets taken away from the film for a long time. This is a really impressive set, actually. I think what Whedon did well here in this opening sequence with the Tesseract comes to life is he really showed the epic scope of everything. There's a good shot when Loki... Well, this shot, too, where you just see the giant vastness of everything, and I really like that you can sort of see in a space there. And here we have Tom Hiddleston. Oh, everyone loves him because he commits so much into the role. The dialogue and his motivation here, I think leaves some to be desired. But, boy, look at that face there. He is so much fun. And I love that he's kind of become a big movie star. Because he is just so entertaining. And I love Samuel L. Jackson there trying to stand up to him. That's pretty funny. And he just doesn't take it from anybody, Tom Hiddleston, as Loki. What was I saying there? I was saying about Hawkeye. I don't really think he's all that necessary in this film. And he's not really a superhero in the traditional sense. And, I don't really think Jeremy Renner is all that... Well, he's a good actor, but I really haven't seen the kind of praise he gets. I really think he's kind of overrated, to tell you the truth. He's in another movie called Hurt Locker, which won Best Picture, and he sort of became something of a star there. But I think he was just putting this for his name, and Whedon didn't really know what to do with him because there's no explanation to his character. But he doesn't. He kind of, because they don't want to do anything with him, he's kind of just gone, and then he comes back and says, "Oh, I want revenge for being put under the spell. An ant has no quarrel with a boot." It's goofy dialogue, but Hiddleston is someone who can transcend some of the goofiness about this. Freedom is life's great lie. We're going to get into Loki's motivation a little bit later in the movie because, I think he says he's kind of a really good counterpart, Loki, and his idea that freedom is life's great lie and that he means to bring freedom and peace. He's a good counterpoint to what we're facing in this movie, for sure. Here's a scene I think is really good. You see the whole... you pan out as Loki and his slaves are walking away. and that's really kind of neat. Here is one of the only two female characters that mean anything in this film. Colby Smulders is Agent Hill, and Joss Whedon. One of the things that I guess he gets a lot of credit for is his ability to create strong female characters, and I don't see it. I don't see it in this film for sure. And it's not really to the fault of them. Maybe a little bit. I mean, the fault to how they're written, maybe a little bit, because I think they're written pretty generically, to tell you the truth. They kind of go through the action hero motions. But I think it's just a fault to the general movie, really. I don't think any of the Avengers stand out, and the female ones, they kind of stand out in a different way. I think Agent Hill could have been a stronger character in this film had she been more of Fury's partner. You know what I mean? I think she just kind of takes Samuel L. Jackson's orders and pretty, doesn't have any defiance or any character. And I don't really know if it's maybe the script or Smolder's acting, but I kind of place the blame on the script, to tell you the truth. Or, maybe give Samuel L. Jackson some credit, because he's a pretty imposing figure on the screen. And there's already a huge action sequence to begin the film. You're already seeing the kind of destruction that you come to expect from this movie. And as I was sort of getting into earlier, but I got cut off by the movie, I remember seeing the original Iron Man when it came out, and seeing Samuel L. Jackson, come in with his little teaser Easter egg at the end of it to sort of set this up. And I remember my great fear with it. And I don't know if it came true. I kind of think it did, and looking at some of them, but I thought, oh no, everything from this point is only going to set up this movie, and we'll talk about it. I thought Iron Man 2, all my love for the original Iron Man really went away with Iron Man 2. I thought, all the evolution that Robert Downey Jr.'s character went over the course of Iron Man 1 was just completely washed away. He was back where he started. Oh, that's an opening for you, with Alan Silverstein's frankly pretty generic musical score. You want something that says white bread heroes, and that's the way to go. Here we have the other female lead, Scarlett Johansson, as Black Widow, and I would believe Whedon and his fans a little bit more if they say, oh, she's tough, she can fight, and but I might believe them a little bit more if they didn't have to dress her so scantily. Like every same problem that there is with female heroes these days, and like how they're made up, that's not practical for, like, none of the outfits she wears in this movie are practical fighting outfits, you know what I mean? Like, she's not dressed like a soldier at all, and it's just, they're all reveal her boobs give the comic book fanboys what they want. Oh boy. I just I get real tired of having Russians as stereotypical villains. It's just real easy, and then this guy, they always make fun of Russians for being ditzes. And I think that's kind of interesting that her character, in fact, is Russian. And then she has a line later on in the movie that, oh, I used to be Russian. What the hell is that? It'd be interesting to, show that the Avengers are kind of a global force and have her be proud of being Russian, go against the traditional ideas. One thing I don't like about this movie, I think its humor falls really flat, and it's. I almost think like a movie like this doesn't need humor, the action and stuff is thrilling enough, gets you enough laughs and titillation. That's just goofy seeing Coulson dance around the jig while she beats up these cardboard bad guys. And, just going off what I was saying earlier, what she's dressed up in and, how that's showing how tough she is, This idea isn't new, the idea that, I can fight in my high heels and my evening dress and, still beat somebody up despite all my appearances, and it isn't new, it isn't original. Here we're about to be introduced to Mark Ruffalo's Bruce Banner, the Incredible Hulk, and I don't know where the heck he's supposed to be. I believe India. But I, for one, was a little disappointed Edward Norton wasn't brought back. Although I do kind of like what Ruffalo does with the part. And I really like Mark Ruffalo a lot as an actor. It's nothing against him, but I kind of liked Edward Norton's take, even though I didn't really think the Incredible Hulk was all that interesting a movie. I think one of the problems with it was that, it wasn't brave enough, the Incredible Hulk. I thought it was just really by the books, the Edward Norton film, and I think, one of the problems the Hulk movies have had and why there hasn't really been a successful Hulk solo film is you kind of have to go into some anti-government kind of sentiment, with Thunderbolt Ross. And I don't think either Hulk film, Ang Lee one, which I still think is actually pretty darn good. I think Lee does some really interesting things with the mythos of the character. I really like the father-son dynamic of that film. I think that's one of the strengths of it. But what the fault of that movie is the Thunderbolt Ross character. It doesn't really want to go too far. The idea of going against the government and the army, and they both kind of came out at the wrong time, those Hulk movies. I mean, the first Hulk came out in 2003, which was the height of the Bush nonsense about the Iraq War. And I think, what could have made that movie stronger if it had gone darker. And, said that it'd been about weapons, the way the first Iron Man film was. You know what I mean? But I like what Ruffalo does with the character, but what I think he could have done stronger is to show, that Bruce Banner is a good man. You know what I mean? That he's a scientist who really wants to work for the benefit of mankind. And I guess you could say that there's no time for that in this film, because, we're at war and whatnot with Loki. But I think what I liked about Edward Norton's Hulk is that there was still a warmth to him. He seemed like a nice guy, and he really didn't want to hurt people. And it's a different take here with Ruffalo. There's a lot more self-loathing, and he's, I don't want to say mean-spirited, but he's a little bit angrier. You know what I mean? And we'll definitely get into that. What I think what Ruffalo's Hulk and what I think what he does here that sort of seems unbelievable is he kind of goes with. He's kind of like, all right, I'll go with you guys. You know what I mean? I suppose you could say that. Oh my goodness, here is my biggest problem with this movie, and we'll go into it for sure. I mean, I could talk for an hour about these people, this World Security Council in this film, and they're frightening, to say the least. I mean, this Powers Booth here and Jenny Gooder, I think what you have to say about this is that you're running the world's covert security operation to leave the fate of the human race. Who appointed these assholes as the protecting the human race? I mean, you're gonna get some of my own political opinions in the film, and you're gonna say, oh, shouldn't you be impartial? And I try, for the most part, to be impartial about the film, I really do, but just this idea that these supposedly are the head of S.H.I.E.L.D., and S.H.I.E.L.D. is who you're supposed to root for in this film, and, you could say, oh, well, maybe it's not S.H.I.E.L.D., maybe it's the heroes, They're not necessarily soldiers, but, I mean, eventually, over the course of the film, they do sort of question S.H.I.E.L.D. in the middle of it, but over the course of the film, they are tricked into following the party line, and it's hard to root for heroes like that, you know what I mean? Eventually, there are some questions raised about it, but I just don't think enough. And people have always said, I think the scene is lifted verbatim from the end of the Captain America movie. But I think what people rightfully have a conversation about fascism in these films. You know what I mean? Like, do these films condone going above the law? I mean, who are these superheroes answerable to? And it's a conversation that's worth having, Like, we are in the middle of a sort of superhero zeitgeist. And I like what... I actually like Captain America in this movie. Surprisingly, he's kind of goes against the kind of mold you would expect from him. I think Chris Evans is really good in this movie. I think, he doesn't have the sort of... Well, he doesn't, like, the character is written and, like, what he brings to it doesn't have this sort of blind, nationalistic kind of edge you'd expect from Captain America. But, ooh. You should have left it in the ocean. See, that's what I like about him. Right now, we're going to be introduced to the big man. You can almost call this movie Iron Man and his amazing friends, like that cartoon Spider-Man. But this is one scene I kind of like, that they sort of, in Iron Man 2, they completely forgot about, was that Tony wanted to switch kind of the direction of his company to be for the betterment of mankind, and what he's doing here is kind of like doing his goofy green energy project, you know. I like what Jobadiah Stane was saying in the original one, that they're gonna make baby equipment or something. But one thing I think Stark's egotism returns in this movie. You know what I mean? He's got the egotistical edge, and I think that was a step backward for his character. Although I will say they do try to humble him in this movie a little bit, but it's just, I don't know how well it works, because how do you humble Tony Stark? More than what happened in Jon Favreau's original movie, where he's trapped in the cave, and he sees his weapons in the hands of terrorists who he thought he was going to fight. And, above anyone else, I don't see Tony Stark falling hook, line, and sinker for S.H.I.E.L.D's project. And, Iron Man 2 kind of was really a pointless movie, because all it really wanted to do was go, oh, you might be able to join the Avengers. The entire movie, they kind of tricked Tony and say, oh, you might be able to join the Avengers, and we're going to watch over you, babysit you to make sure you don't do anything stupid. And then at the end they just say, oh, no, you can't. We'll have Iron Man, but not you. And then, of course, in this one, they come back right away, and this life decoy, what is it? Some decoy thing, life model, and my cousin, he's a huge fan of Marvel, and he had his own theories about later on Coulson, of course, is gonna die, quote unquote die, and he was thinking, oh, it was his life decoy, and I'm like, oh man, you're looking a little too far into the whole thing. Self-obsessed, doesn't play well with others. I think I think you need to have Tony evolve over these movies, and he doesn't really. Like the first Iron Man movie, you kind of get the feeling that while he's still this rambunctious personality, that he's still very out there, that he's humbled somewhat, and that the Iron Man is really more for the good of the world and not an ego trip. And in some moments, like the most tiresome moments of Downey Jr.'s character are when, like, it's just for nothing more than the character's ego, and you see those moments, you want him to get humbled, and both Iron Man 2 and this movie try to do that. I think Iron Man 3, which a lot of people hate, I don't really see the hate for it, because there's some good moments in it, but it is a goofy movie, to be sure. But I think they do it a little bit better in that movie than they did here. And we'll see later on what they try to do with Iron Man. And I think it really ties with my central problems with the film. A lot of people where you are the world's first superhero. And that's something about this movie is that the first Iron Man movie, it felt sort of like the Chris Nolan Batman movies. Like it could take place in a heightened form of reality. You know what I mean? And this movie kind of skates on that. There's some moments in it where, well, obviously you have Loki, coming in, but like there's a sort of jarring feel to this movie where Whedon doesn't really know if he wants it to be this huge cartoon or if he wants it to be a sort of like semi-realistic comic book film. People might just need a little old-fashioned. That's kind of interesting. That's kind of what I like about the character, too, is that they do kind of go out with it. Loki's already developed his own lab. One thing I do have to say about this movie is that it is unashamedly a MacGuffin movie. You know what I mean? It's just like that Tesseract. It doesn't really do anything but open that door, and it just gets pretty boring. You know what I mean? I think MacGuffins, if they're done poorly, just kind of really get tiresome. You know what I mean? They make up for a lack of a plot because all it is about is, where is that thing at? How can we get it back? And you'll see that in the middle of this movie because the whole Tesseract thing isn't really interesting enough, in my opinion, to sustain a lot of screen time. And so later on, they kind of end the movie, or they don't really end. Well, they don't end it, of course not. But they sort of like have a side diversion that lasts long and doesn't go anywhere. Here we sort of see Loki's motivation for the entire film. He likes, or he goes into the fact that he's the rightful king of Asgard, and I really liked Branagh's original Thor film. It had its problems, to be sure, but I really liked his vision of Loki and Hiddleston's portrayal of Loki. You know, that he's kind of a tragic figure, and his heart's really his heart's sort of warpedly in the right place in that movie. That he wants the acceptance of his father, that he knows that he could never be like him, He'll never live up to his brother. And that's really a classic tale, and I really like Branagh's description of it, that it's sort of like King Lear with Edmund and Edgar. Edmund the Bastard is what Loki is, and he's becomes a horrible villain like Edmund does, but he still sort of has a real, emotional place where that villainy comes from, and you sympathize with him because it's just kind of what the sort of whole society went off of. Here's the moment that's where you're kind of saying, "Oh, really? They want me in a submerged, pressurized metal container?" He's right, though. Ruffalo's right, though. It's a lot worse than that. I like Ruffalo's. I like the costumes on Ruffalo, like his sort of scientific-y uniform. Like they don't. They unashamedly show him in the blue pants and the kind of goofy sneakers. He does looks like out of work kind of vagabond professor doctor. What I was saying is, like, I like also about Loki is that his character evolves over the course of the movie, and I like Whedon's definition, kind of explanation of it in his commentaries and kind of what the interview materials were. Is that they were saying that going through space and time, kind of obviously that would drive someone completely out of it. There we go, a whole team of extras. This is what Captain Kirk wish he had. This goofy thing here, and at the center of it is Nick Fury. Alright, here's something I am going to cry bullshit on. Why was it okay, or why was it like a sin against nature when Pierce Brosnan's James Bond did this in Die Another Day, and nobody I've heard calls out when Whedon does it here? Like, it was goofy as all hell then, but supposedly that this is, you could say, oh, I could suspend my disbelief for this. Okay, here we go. Coulson says in a line that's almost throwaway dialogue that we're sweeping every cell phone, laptop on the planet. And, I mean, are you okay with that? I've never heard anyone in any review of the Avengers say, hey, that's not very ethical at all. I mean, they question the ethics of other superhero movies, like the Superman one that came out, Man of Steel, and the Superman Returns, that he's a fascist, but like this is an actual like agency that supposedly is not accountable to anyone, who has the power to look over everyone's cell phones, and eventually we're going to find out later in the movie that that they can attack whoever they want. I mean, that's frightening. That is frightening. Here's our main man, Agent Coulson, who, really, besides for Loki, for me, he might be my favorite character in this movie. Because you know what I like about him, and I really think is his appeal is that amidst all these superheroes, that are carved out of Marvel, that look sexy, that, are strong and buff and can do all the fighting and can kick ass. And you got Coulson, who's this kind of shy, blue-collar guy who finds himself in the midst of all of it, and who wants Captain America to sign his baseball cards. And Clark Gregg he's really good in the part. He's got a very matter-of-fact kind of attitude about it, and he's great in it. And I haven't watched Agents of Shield beyond the pilot. I mean, I had the same problems with Agents of Shield that I had with this movie, but he was pretty good in the pilot. He was pretty good, I gotta admit, and we'll see. We'll see. Silence of the Lambs kind of ruined it. You know, every sophisticated Brit villain in high culture has to have classical music while he goes attacking and hunting down everyone. I like this part too. I mean, what I like about it is that it's not where Loki. I don't know how the hell he does it. He's like cutting out an eyeball and then like sending it holographically to Hawkeye. But I like the fact that you know, we're actually using some pretty grisly violence, but you know, like it doesn't go for overkill. It's kind of implied. Well, pretty pretty boldly implied, and I like that they do that. Loki puts on his horns, and I like that Weed continued what Branagh did in the first movie, is that when Loki comes to Earth, he kind of dresses in a suit and tie in some moments of the movie, and then goes all out in his Asgardian costume in the next moment. Nero. He's just all out, Tom Hiddleston, screaming. And I mean, this is like a Saturday morning matinee, kind of like drawn out to epic, bizarre proportions. And that's not a criticism of Hiddleston or Whedon, really. It's just kind of what everyone tries to do. It just shows that, you know, people like the notion of being of like this fun, simple story of good and evil, and in the end, you know, evil is a lot of fun when it's flashy and cartoony. Oh, here's a goofy moment. They're in Germany, and there are always men like you. Yeah, you know, well, what is it, Godwin's Law or whatnot, where you eventually have to compare someone to Hitler, you know, so far, and, you know, last time I was in Germany and saw a man standing above everybody else, we ended up disagreeing. See, this is where the movie kind of loses me a little bit. Where, like, well, not when the heroes are by themselves, but when they're kind of like talking to Loki or about Loki, it just goes entirely into cliches like that. And they're not particularly interesting cliches either, or they're not new takes on the cliches. They're just kind of like, oh, here comes Tony. And here's kind of just an interesting thing about this movie, and just kind of like what they do with it. I don't know really how powerful the Asgardians are, you know, what kind of damage that they can take. Because you see Loki's scepter, which can pretty much, I guess, blow people up. And, Captain America's shield gets it, and, it's just kind of, I wonder sometimes. I think it's kind of a convenient, uh, convenience. What you think, Pilates? It's like careless aesthetics. You might have missed a few things during your time as a capsicle. This, well, at least Iron Man's sort of questioning Fury a little bit. But this entire conflict between Captain America and Iron Man is just really out of nowhere. Like, they have no reason to hate each other. I mean, like, other than the traditional Tony Stark cockiness that we seem to see. Here we have almost a whole hour into the movie Thor's first appearance, and he just comes out of nowhere and like plan attack. Later on, that'll get him, I think. Here's Captain America's kind of aw shucks attitude, and there's only one guy, and I'm pretty sure he doesn't dress like that. It's kind of a good line, but it's just kind of shows you that Captain America is really sort of old-fashioned, and I like Whedon's explanation. Whedon's said he was an atheist, and good for him. But he said that Captain America isn't obviously. Here's Thor, who I really like the first Thor a lot, as I said, but I think Thor is the one of the Avengers who really suffers the most in this movie, and it's really kind of, he gets the least development. He just kind of is there, and he, in all the conversations with the Avengers, he just sort of sits to the side, and the only input is oh, Loki's my brother, You take the world as a recompense for your imagined slight. Marvelous job with that. You and slaughter each other. Well, yes, I think myself above them. A throne would suit you ill. But I think, like, what Thor is, like, he's easily the most powerful Avenger. And I think, like, it's really inexcusable, like, especially when Loki's his brother, when he just kind of doesn't really do a whole lot in the movie. And I just think they don't know what to do with him. But, we'll get into that later. Loki, Loki's his brother. And, like, if anything, he should be the most prominent character in this film. There's a real goofy moment of humor. Oh, I'm listening after he gets pushed away. Like, you don't need those kind of cheap jokes in the movie. Shakespeare in the Park. Yeah, that's... No, mother, no, you weareth her drapest beyond you metal man. That's just, like, that's a moment of humor that works. But the one before it didn't really work. It's just kind of, the kind of summer movie humor. All right. See, that's another example of, what does Asgardian weaponry or magic, how it works on Earth. Like, that should have been enough. Sending Mjolnir at him should have been enough to, like, rip through Tony Stark's iron and his stomach. You know, he should have been gutted right there. I mean, maybe not that, but I mean, like, really, it's really convenient. Like any other character who would get that, it would have died instantly, or at least that's what I'm led to believe with kind of the mythos of it. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's something that the comic books, yeah, you know, like that. Like, don't you think Thor could stand ground and just like stood in place with all of Tony's iron, or not iron, but you know, all his jets? And Thor really has the like the most cause here, like, or the easiest solution. Like, he's the one who can probably has the best ability to get the Tesseract and get Loki. And really, as we're gonna see later on in the film, that all these egos kind of hurt him, and they spend the needless time. See? Yeah, put it down on him. Put the hammer down on him. Wow. I forgot that part. That should have been enough to kill Captain America there. I mean, how powerful is Mjolnir supposed to be anyway? And I'm probably going to get some comic book fan saying, read Thor issue Watson. And I'd be glad to, but I've got better things to read. We're about to embark into the middle half of the film, where things are about to go down. I remember when we saw Captain America, that this shot with Loki and the kind of the Shield soldiers driving him to his prison cell was in the kind of the teaser Easter egg at the end of Captain America, and I just was like so excited because Loki just looked badass, and I was like thinking that he had captured, or you know, had taken over, and then I was thinking like that moment would be in the you know, like with the Tesseract mind control. I was thinking that would be kind of what propelled or those soldiers, but I don't know. It's just one of those moments where you say, oh, it's in the trailer, and the trailer kind of misleads you. Here we're about to sort of go into the Hulk's kind of or kind of what they think, but an impressive cage, not built, I think, for me. Built for something a lot stronger than you. And that's kind of where you say, that the Hulk goes like, you know, you want to put me in a cage, and that's exactly kind of what they are intended to do. You know, you don't know their plans. I think all along they kind of would say, like, who's to say that Shield didn't want to, you know, get into his blood like Thunderbolt Ross did, so that he could create an army of Hulks. I mean, as you see later on in the film with their plans for the Tesseract, that they only wanted it as a weapon, as a giant weapon for them to let me know if Real Power wants a magazine or something. That's such a Samuel L. Jackson line. You know, that line would sound goofy coming from anyone else, but that's a good one. Loki's gonna drag this out. So Thor, what's his play? You see, that's all Thor does in this movie. He gives exposition about Loki, and that's all they do. He means to lead them against your people. They will win him the earth. Not me from outer space. Visits us. She's a friend. Yeah, that's another thing about this movie where I sort of question, maybe in this, that, you know, they're saying that uh, Black Widow, or Natasha Romanoff, whatever her name is considered like a great female character. Like, over the course of the film, she she only cares about rescuing Hawkeye, and she's like a slave to uh, uh, getting Hawkeye back. And I mean, like, what does that say? That her only stakes in the movie are, being a slave to a man's, or like wanting a man. That's it. Oh, I love, yeah. Yeah, you know what? You know what? For all it is, Iron Man for a little bit is the one who, he's sticking the spy thing on the side of the computer there. He is the one that I kind of like in the movie for a little bit. But over the course of it, I think we'll see that he kind of loses some of that goodwill with me. He mistrusts S.H.I.E.L.D. for a little bit. Finally, someone who speaks English. Everyone talks about kind of the bromance that Iron Man and the Hulk have over the movie, because they're both like the great scientific minds. And yeah, right. Greed, rage machine. And they're like, oh no, he's only here to attract the cube. That's all. That's all. We don't care about him turning into the Hulk. But like, they have some chemistry between them, Robert Downey Jr. and Mark Ruffalo. And what was it? Everything Wrong with the Avengers, that YouTube series that's really kind of funny. They're like saying that they're gay or something. That's kind of cute. And that's Galaga on the computer. That's kind of a fun little Easter egg moment there. Boy, this thing kind of like reminds me a lot of Star Wars, the Star Destroyer. Like, it looks kind of like the sets are really inspired by Star Wars. That kind of shows you that all summer blockbusters, kind of, these epics, recreations of Saturday morning cartoons are kind of all slaves to the original that did it best. I kind of broke Harlem. That's actually kind of interesting, you know what I mean? That he makes reference to the original Incredible Hulk film, because I was kind of under the impression that the character in this was not the same. Well, that he sort of shared the same backstory as the Edward Norton character, but that that they were a different character. You know what I mean? But they make reference to that. But I think one thing that we sort of, I think I glanced over it. I think it happened already, where Captain America finds out more about Dr. Banner, and he says that they were looking for the doctor's formula to the super soldiers super soldier serum. But if we remember the original not the original Captain America, the original Incredible Hulk film, what creates the villain in that movie, you see Thunderbolt Ross, and he's talking to, oh crap, I forget his name, but Abomination. He's talking to him, and he says, "Oh, we've had super soldier program on ice since the '40s." Like, wouldn't you think that that if it was what Bruce Banner was working on, that an intelligence organization that fears intelligence story would sound awesome. All right, that's good stuff. It's been a little bit since I've seen that movie, but just like what following's not really my style. You see, that's good stuff. Like an intelligence organization that infers intelligence. That is my problem with the movie. That what this is a war being fought by an almost NSA type organization. That is my problem with the movie. But you know what? Later on, we're gonna see that all that goodwill is just completely thrown out the window. And you know what? I'll go into my problems with the film, with this this. I think that the movie, as we're going to see later on, with eventually Coulson finds out that or Coulson dies, and what they do is they have a real cheap conceit where they have his cards, like they're all bloodied up, and they're saying, "Oh, he believed in heroes," and then Tony and all the Avengers sort of go into it, and they lose whatever trepidations they had about S.H.I.E.L.D. And I just I can't root for these people. I mean, I don't know, maybe like the trailers I'm seeing for Captain America 2, they sort of hint at the fact that S.H.I.E.L.D. is going above and beyond the standards of ethics. That was unnecessary. See Captain America jump up just to get up there. That's kind of goofy. But hopefully in the next movie, you say Captain America above all would be so totally fucking against the NSA. And you know what? Yeah, I guess in Marvel's Civil War, that's what Captain America is fighting. But Dr. Selvig's got his sort of 5 o'clock channel. But what was I saying about that? I'm sorry. Are we supposed to forgive S.H.I.E.L.D. at the end of this film? This is definitely a case of, do the ends justify the means? And I think it's really, really interesting that you see Loki in this film. Bill Sniper, what's that goofy line that Thor gives? And Thor is really not who you want to give humor in this movie. They're just kind of making fun of the fact that he speaks in a heightened language. But well, as I was saying, this is really a question of, do the ends justify the means? And it's a question that I think really has to be asked about every comic book sort of hero, because every comic book hero is something of a vigilante. You know what I mean? Like, they do go above and beyond the law. And I know I promised that I wouldn't go into this, but I think, like, if you were to ask me, hey Mike, what do you think is the standard for a good comic book movie, I would probably say, for Marvel, the best Marvel film ever made was the first Iron Man. And for DC and just comic books in general, I have to say The Dark Knight. Because I think both of those films do go into some very dangerous waters in terms of asking questions of their audience. I think they create dangerous scenarios where the heroes go above the line. They cross the line and become something that they shouldn't. You know what I mean? That they become almost... They cross the line from being hero into dangerous, almost criminal enactment of justice. But both of those movies eventually ask, is this right? And I think they both answer no. You know what I mean? I think they both answer no. Like in the first Iron Man film, you see what's perverted about that kind of technology in the Obadiah Stane character, that he kind of says, I'll take this technology and be superhuman with it and act on everything. And you see that that's kind of what Tony sees in himself, at least this is my interpretation of it. I don't claim like this is what everyone should think, but I think what Tony sees in the Obadiah Stane conflict is that, hey, this is what an unhinged Tony Stark could become, that I could be corrupted to this point, and that's why Iron Man needs to have a moral code. And I think in The Dark Knight, which I'll bring up just for a little bit, it's a good film, and I probably will do a commentary on it at some point, hopefully. But you lie and kill in the service of liars and killers. That is almost makes me want to root for Loki in this movie. Oh my gosh. We'll go into that too. But going back to The Dark Knight, kind of what I was bringing up there, it comes to the point where Batman becomes corrupted to the point where he's evil. He becomes exactly what he wanted to destroy, this kind of mindless vigilante. And people say that The Dark Knight eventually comes to the conclusion that, yes, the ends justify the means. But I think one thing what Nolan did well is that when he came back for the last film in that trilogy, the entire third film of the Dark Knight series is about them saying, no, not at all. The ends do not justify the means at all. And the Batman and Gotham all suffer for what happened. And what is Phase 2? The S.H.I.E.L.D. uses the cube to make weapons. Sorry, computers were moving a little slow for me. What, were you lying? I was wrong, Doctor. The world hasn't changed a bit. See, this is where Loki is manipulating you. See, weapons of mass destruction, even. Like, they use that term, weapons of mass destruction. And, like, just this sort of high-ended, kind of Bush-like dialogue, the whole talk of a pre- or a post-9/11 world where the lines between right and wrong, are blurred to the point where you kind of, you throw away, you kind of throw away your conceptions of right, wrong, to the point where you almost want to listen to S.H.I.E.L.D., you almost want to say, hey, we shouldn't be confine ourselves to justice, the traditional form of, like, limits on justice. And I think what's interesting about this film is that they sort of have this arguments here, but you know what? Like, it all is for naught. It all goes away later on. This is a sort of interesting scene that they kind of move over the spear. But I think what's interesting. We'll go back to how I thought Loki was a really good counterpoint for S.H.I.E.L.D. in this movie, and Loki, chemical mixture that makes chaos. That's just a goofy line to set off the fact that they're all gonna team up heroically at the end, and then they're talking about try on the suit so that they can fight. Like, what kind of goofiness is that? It's only to kind of make the end all the more goofier. Here's they sort of set up something which I think would have given the movie some more stakes. They're talking about, hey, you're not the play guy, hero like you. The kind of, they're talking about soldiers. And while I think that soldier, the classification of soldiers sort of causes some problems in that, if you call someone a soldier, that they just kind of, justifies everything. But I think what is interesting later on is that this could have set up something a little different with you people are so petty and tiny. He's absolutely right, Thor. Just in case you needed to kill me. Just in case you needed to kill me, but you can't. I know, I tried. This is supposed to be one of the more dramatic moments in the film. And it's kind of brave, actually, I think. I don't think I've ever seen, at least in the Hulk media, a version where he's, tried to kill himself. But what I think is really kind of interesting about the Hulk character is that Bruce Banner is kind of a, he's mild-mannered, as they said, but when he gets angry, it turns into the Hulk. And that's one of the classic things I love about the character, is that, starting off, the idea of it is kind of goofy, but they've really, over the years, they've developed a lot of pathos to the character. And I think I've I've liked a lot of takes of the character. Even though I didn't think the Edward Norton movie was very good, I thought Edward Norton himself was actually pretty good on it, and I thought he was a really good Bruce Banner. And I liked one thing I really liked about the Ang Lee version was the father-son story with Nick Nolte. I thought that was done really, really well. But here he's gonna have the Hulk transform. This is a really this is the sequence in the movie where it just kind of didn't know where it wanted to go, and it was really just long set piece for the sake of it, and just at least, well, I don't know, maybe not this part here with we're gonna be okay, listen to me. Ooh, they want to run away. Your life. Oh, I like the fact that at least for this part in the movie, that the Hulk is treated as a genuine monster. That he's this uncontrollable monster, and they do it really, really well at this part in the film. And the Hulk has never looked better. He looks completely, lifelike, and I really love the fact that in like kind of the middle transition of the Hulk's metamorphosis, that they actually had the bright idea to say, hey, let's take a look at Mark Ruffalo and engineer our Hulk after him. Here we have Captain America trying to fix this plane here, and this is kind of the least interesting task of the Avengers at this point. I mean, okay, here's another thing. Where the heck is Thor in all of this? Why can he not use his super strength here? Like, he kind of leaves the whole thing for a little bit. I mean, he has a little parlay, little sort of skirmish with the Hulk. But he, I think, was wasted, here. That he could have probably solved this flying station going down better than anyone else. Oh, boy. I gotta say, this is like a traditional monster movie. And that's actually pretty good, seeing them chase her. But yeah, she does kind of, here we have Thor and the Hulk fighting. And maybe not so much in the end portion of the film, but I think these are the best action sequences of the film. Even this fight here with Thor and the Hulk. aside from the fact that there's always that sort of awkwardness, with CGI interacting with a real actor. This movie sort of has that same problem, although the CGI on the Hulk is really good. But I like the fight there because I think, and it's not really just the Avengers problem. It's kind of the problem I've been having with a lot of action films these days is that I wish the action was a little more intimate. You know what I mean? That it didn't go super fast or super slow, because I want to see an actual fight. Um, I think what I miss about kind of the action films of the 80s, aside from the fact that they were darker and had more violence that actually had weight to it, but there's a kind of Arthurian legend there where Thor tries to pick up the hammer. I really like that. That's a really nice touch. But what I was saying is that kind of the I miss about the action films is that there was more of a intimacy to the violent or to the fighting. Like people would get up close and personal, and that there weren't all these jump cuts, and you could actually see a fight take place. One of the, I I don't really know. You might say, hey, that's not an action film, but I really like the choreographed fights in the Rocky movies, because that's not really a movie about boxing. That's kind of an action movie. And you see sort of like the kind of the blows, and I like that. At least the moment where Thor is fighting the Hulk, kind of has that feel to it, kind of like a real intimate sort of fight. Here's another moment I like with the Hulk, and I think, I almost want to say that this is Whedon's tribute to the finale of the Bill Bixby show, Death of the Incredible Hulk, where the Hulk jumps up and on a plane while he's flying, and then he falls off and presumably dies, or he does die. And they did this in Hulk 2003 too. And I like to think that, there's just a moment for just the 3D with Iron Man with that laser. And I actually did see this in 3D, and that's another thing about this movie. I mean, it wasn't an experience like Cameron's Avatar, where the 3D was an event, or Hugo. It was just real generic, and like the scenes where it said, "Hey, I remember we're shooting this in 3D," were just really unimpressive. I would have liked to have seen, and I think Favreau was originally planning on it for Iron Man 2, if they had shot some of the sequences in IMAX. I think this movie really would have benefited from that. I think, like, especially some of the scenes at the beginning where I was showing where Whedon had the epic scope. That is stupid beyond belief that he can shoot a flash drive arrow directly into the flash drive or the USB port. That is just so goddamn goofy. Like, I know you're gonna say, "Hey, Mike, it's a comic book film," but I could believe a guy turning into a green monster, but I can't believe that. I'm sorry, that's goofy. This is a good use of Iron Man. I think it's kind of fun, but Crap, what was I talking about there? Lost my train of thought for a second, I apologize. One thing I think, oof. Here we have like the most, probably most memorable moment in the film. And, oh, you're always falling for that. That's from the original Thor. Oh, yeah, actually, we're not going to get to that part just yet. We have the fight between kind of the characterless Hawkeye and Black Widow. And it has another kind of moment that I think is sort of silly where they cure the Tesseract mind control by just, slamming him on the head. But Mjolnir's not enough to break through the glass. All right, here we go. Coulson standing up to Loki. And I really love this. And it's just kind of like, I just kind of like it, like moments like that where, it's a movie populated with superheroes, and Coulson, he's got a good heart, but he's the furthest thing away from a superhero. The moment reminds me of the part in Lord of the Rings where Merry and Pippin are the first to run with run with Aragorn to battle. And I really love moments like that. And that was unsurprisingly, when I saw the movie opening weekend, that was the biggest crowd pleaser. That got the biggest applause. And I got to admit, I applauded too. Because that is kind of what I think a true hero is. Someone standing up with courage. When they are kind of outmatched. Yeah, how convenient. All right, this is she'll think this was a bright idea to send the Hulk's thing in a contingency plan there. That probably would have fallen on a populated area and probably wouldn't have even killed the Hulk and set him loose and probably killed a whole bunch of people in the process. Coulson. Do you think Loki, you lack conviction? That was a crowd pleaser. I was happy to see that. And one thing I really think you really felt for Coulson there, but I knew for a fact that they weren't going to kill him off, and they just make it all the more clear later on, that they're using his death kind of as a plot device, but you sort of get the feeling that it works. You know what I mean? I think it works. I like within the scope of the movie, although what it sets up isn't really all that. I'm not really all that fond of what it sets up, and I think I'd be I don't know. I think it would kind of, I'd be a little less forgiving had it not been that I liked the character of Coulson so much, and I like Clark Gregg's performance. And Loki has ended his diversion. To go unrabbit. I wonder. I wonder how they explain this. Granted, you're probably gonna say, see Agent of Shield, that they explain it pretty well how he survives this, but he looks pretty bad here, and I think they had the benefit of having Clark Gregg be really good in the role, and the fact that they already used him pretty well in the first Iron Man movie, because he's one of the strong points of that movie. You kind of they're here. Medical team's on the way. They're here. They called it. Yeah, here's where the movie loses me a little bit. All the questions about, hey, is Shield the good guy here, and we're supposed to believe that that this is enough to say, oh, hey, it's okay, you could build weapons of mass destruction if you wanted to. I'll let you. We'll fight for you because our pal died. There's something about there's something. They accuse Loki of not having the conviction, but these guys don't have conviction, really. There's an idea. Stark knows this. This is could have been I don't know, a decent scene, but I think in these hands, I think like the dialogue here is really, really run of the mill. Like, it's almost like a pep talk, done to like little kids. And I think what could have made it work a little better would be had maybe not necessarily had they not killed if the Coulson's death were a little bit more, or less ambiguous, that maybe they thought he was wouldn't come back because they just set it up in a way that what is this scene here, like what is that scene where Thor can't get his hammer up? Here's Harry Dean Stanton, and I was just like, I was glad to see him. He doesn't look all that different from what he did in Alien. Did he notice that he was the Hulk at this time? Big green and buck ass nude. And shrunk you down to a regular sized fella. Yeah, and he kind of goes up to him like, are you an alien? Well, son, then you got a condition. He might be the only one I would forgive doing that kind of goofy humor with, you know what I mean? Because he does have an honesty to him, Harry Dean Stanton. You see this stuff here with Hawkeye. When they introduced him in the original Thor, I had that sort of same feeling. I'm like, what the heck is this guy doing here? You know, this is just setting up a sequel. And since Hawkeye isn't really interesting enough to make its own movie, that he just kind of, and then that Whedon didn't feel that he could have him in here. Like, you're just kind of like, what's his end game in this? Why should we care about this character? What I think, and this is just me here, what I think would have made the Avengers a little stronger at this point, or would have been to have had Natasha kill off Hawkeye while he was in the kind of the Tesseract-y mind control state. I think that would have added to the character, you know. He wouldn't have had to have killed off poor Coulson, who, you know, we love him, but he's not a superhero. And, you know, I think seeing kind of like one of these buff, beautiful superheroes, and, you know, Jeremy Renner has given next to nothing into doing this. If they had killed him off, you know, like his strength and, you know, maybe drawn out that battle a little bit, it would have given Scarlett Johansson maybe a little bit more to work with, and you know, it would maybe that anger and wanting to get some of that catharsis by going to war, that would have been interesting, I thought. Here's that. I've got red in my ledger. That's such a goofy spy line. Here we have the next part of the sort of thing, and it sets it up, but it doesn't pay it off, and they talk like they're not saying for believing he was doing his job. You see Captain America here. Captain America, you know, while following orders, you know, whatnot, and he just he says, "Neither am I. I'm not falling behind Fury's. He's got the same blood on his hands that Loki does." But then why are they fighting for him? Like, you see that, like, they get their passion gets the better of them, and they still have the same problems that they had before. You know, that they're just kind of, all of them are kind of, well, especially Captain America and Iron Man, and they're kind of the ones that glue the team together, that they're both really tremendously egotistical, and that, you know, their egotism kind of works together, you know, that huge passion is working together. And here's another humbling moment for Stark, that he realizes, oh crap, they're gonna go to my tower for the for Loki's power source. Yeah, Thor couldn't get his hammer up and going because he needed this dramatic moment for the electricity to crackle on his thing. You know, you need your suit up moment. and we don't have the Incredible Hulk coming. Those cards, they weren't in Coulson's locket, not in his jacket. You think, just the idea of fighting Loki would be enough, that they wouldn't need this sort of childish manipulation on Fury's part, because I think, it just kind of gives Fury exactly what he wants in the long run. What was that, dude? Iron Man's thing kind of malfunctioned? That's interesting. Oh, here we have Jarvis, who doesn't really talk all that much in the film. And, oh, that's so goofy. He's calling her she. One of the deleted scenes of that movie I was watching before this was that cafe down there was actually where Captain America visited before, and they were sort of going into the story of him getting de-thawed from the ice, and I think that's an interesting component of this. And to be fair, I think Chris Evans, he does a little bit of it in his performance, but it's really left a lot to, the interpretation of the viewer. And I really, as of this writing, Captain America 2 isn't out yet, but, this kind of maybe a preview for it. But I hope they do go into that a little bit more, because I think that's a really interesting part of the story. And I think especially here that Captain America, he's a little too trusting of authority, and that might be because he sees it as yes, I bet them, yeah. I'll give you that one. See, they sort of set up the Avengers. Why did Loki think that they were all together, how did he get it in his head that that these guys all together were the Avengers? And it's a good moment. This is really just for the crowd pleasing, where you come out on top. All right, here's where we're gonna go into. I keep promising it, and I sort of get lost in track. I'm enjoying the movie. I'm having a good time, but here's where we get track. Loki's plan is pretty much, or his mantra, freedom from freedom, is pretty much the exact same thing as what Powers Booth in his closed circuit TV room. It's the same plan, that S.H.I.E.L.D. is freeing the world from itself, that they have the power to bring peace, just the same kind of peace that Loki wants to give. And I know I'm going into the heavy stuff in the midst of kind of the fun action, and where Iron Man's saying that he's going to avenge Phil. But here we have the arrival of the Chitauri. And this is where the film loses me in a lot of ways. I think whatever goodwill you sort of set up in the beginning kind of kind of gets off here, you know, like these Jatari, like, what the hell are they? I mean, oh yeah, I'm sure they're in the comic books, but you know, there's art to adaptation, and I think it's fair to say that not every one going into this, you know, or probably the majority of the audience of this, you know, it was a $1 billion grosser. The majority of the audience probably didn't know. They have no idea what the Chitauri is. It's just sort of at face value. And so you have two things kind of working against everything here. You have the Tesseract Cube, which is just a MacGuffin. There's that waitress who Captain America meets in the deleted scene. And here's Loki taking control, putting his horns on to show that he's a badass. But you have the all right, here's the moment I really like in the movie. Like, this could have been a whole thing, and instead, you know, I would have wished that and you really couldn't have it in this movie because, you know, everything's so fast moving, and it's an ensemble piece, obviously, but I would have wished that Thor and Loki had a larger battle, but also a confrontation. You know what I mean? I wish they had, you know, kind of sat, or not sat, but before they started fighting, you know, talked over their differences and argued and kind of went in more into the motivation. And I think the film just, you know, it's a victim of, you know, its own epicness, and that you can't have a kind of well, not private, but, you know, intense kind of like conversation before the acting. But I think, you know, the fact that Loki's the main villain, you kind of wish that Thor and him had a confrontation, because at the end of the original Thor, you see that Thor is grieving over Loki's falling into the pit of souls, or whatever it is, off the Rainbow Bridge. The Bifrost was what it was, actually. I actually like the costume design in this film, aside from the female characters. You know, the Batman films in particular, and the Spider-Man films, they get the idea in the head that it has to be like molded plastic or rubber. And, you know, that's just not what a superhero would wear, you know what I mean? They need something a little more tactical, a little more, you know, that allows them to actually fight in. And I really love Captain America's outfit in this. I think this movie, well, maybe not, because I think it's kind of a mixed bag with the costumes, but Captain America's outfit in particular looks pretty awesome in this. And I liked his outfit in the original one too, because, you know, it's kind of, you know, the idea of the Captain America costume, you know, as drawn, it's kind of, well, it's over the top, but you think this madness will end with your rule? Together. See, this is like, I wish this was longer, this part. And more of the example of kind of, you don't know what hurts the Asgardians, because, you know, he just sort of stabs them there. Here's what I was mentioning earlier about kind of the action and how films are action films in particular are done today, is that you need a sense of grounding in the action. You know what I mean? Otherwise, it's just it's hard to watch. It just gets like these scenes in here where you just they're too fast to watch. You know, like even with the destruction, it's unrealistic. You know, it's just like this tempo of everything is either way too slow and methodical, or goofy and super fast, and it just kind of hurts the eyes. And especially with villains like these Chitauri, who you don't really get a good look at what they look like. You know, like I don't think I saw one of their faces. You know what I mean? What they look like? Like, are they? Like, I get the feeling that robots. Oh, that's such an action cliche. You and I remember Budapest infinitely, just like Budapest. I don't know what the hell happened in Budapest. It's lost on me. But here's do we? Here's something that they do in the superhero movies, is showing the police as being totally worthless, and you know, just once I'd love to see a policeman in one of these superhero films to say, you know, fuck you, you're a vigilante. We're gonna do what we need to do. There's another one of the humor scenes. I'd love to just see a comedy movie with no jokes like that. Alright, going off what I was saying earlier about the Chitauri, you know, I don't know what they look like. Are they machines? Are they humans? You know, just like the movie doesn't give us any answers. They're just really obscure. And, you know, since they're kind of like sheep that are being led to the slaughter, you know, it doesn't take anything to kill them, because these heroes are so agile, they're so strong that they could just get rid of them all at once. And Thor kills like 6 of them at a time with his lightning bolt. Like, what kind of army is this? And they intend for this army to destroy everything. But you know, like, it just, like, in addition to it being pretty weak dramatically, it's just weak in terms of the fighting, because you don't see the toll it takes on the characters, and you don't you know, I think above anything else, like, I think the fights that are more intimate are stronger in terms of developing character too, because, you know, you sort of see that these heroes have to do something bigger than themselves. And what better film than the Avengers to have a scene like that? You know what I mean? Like, these are kind of like gladiators. And I would have liked to have seen, you know, maybe stronger fights. Here has a pretty goofy scene that I want to go into. Mark Ruffalo's Hulk has just come back, and he says, oh, the reason I can morph into the Hulk is because I'm always angry. And then he puts himself against that giant, what is that, a centipede cockroach, and destroys it. And, you know, this is a movie that gets accused of a lot of fan baiting, you know, just moments where, you know, Whedon, like, winks at the camera. Like, here's a good one with all the Avengers sort of swirling around 360, and it's a crowd pleaser for sure, you know. It definitely gets people on their edge. And that scene where The Hulk comes in, definitely where Ruffalo, he's just his delivery of that line is pitch perfect, but I question whether it is in character with the Hulk and what it does with the Hulk's character, because don't you say with the Hulk, if he says, "Oh, I'm always angry," that he is in complete control of his ability to transform into the Hulk. And then what dramatic weight does the character have? Is it not a curse for Banner anymore? You know what I mean? I mean, then there's no weight to the character. Like, I really hope that that they go into that more in another entry of the series, because there's some explaining that needs to be done with that line. I mean, it's not enough for it to be just a giant crowd pleaser, because the Hulk's character is important. And, you know, if he can just morph into the Hulk all the time, then really what's the point? I mean, I gotta say I liked the line when I saw it in the show, but every time I've watched this movie, I like it a little less. And there's Hawkeye not even looking at who he's shooting his arrows at, and it goes directly into the Chitauri. You know, this is a case where you have, I don't know, Star Wars gets accused of this with their stormtroopers. I know Lord of the Rings gets accused of it with their orcs, where you could just, like, kill all of them. But I think this is really the most blatant case of, you know, just villains who can, you know, get killed by spitting at them. I mean, Thor there on the top of the Empire State Building was just killing them left and right, you know? I wish that there were stronger moments with these action scenes. I like this portion of it where you see where you see, like, kind of the terror that these people are having. Whedon, to his credit, he does let you know that, hey, this is a battle that's taking place in a major metropolitan area that's full of people. And you see those guys in there in the office building, you know, kind of looking over the water cooler at those cockroaches flying around. And it's fun. And it's interesting, you know what I mean? Because, you know, in some of these movies, they just ignore it. But here, I think it gives it some stakes, especially later on when we find out what Powers Booth's grand plan to solve all this is. Yeah. Here's, you know, she is probably the Avenger that does the most in the movie in terms of evolving as a character, and, you know, just kind of going above and beyond what she was in the beginning, because she is not a soldier, and you know, she goes head on first, Black Widow, into this giant fight. And I like, as I was saying earlier, you know, I wish they would maybe had a little bit more tangible motivation to her, other than her getting pissed off that her pal Hawkeye kind of went a little nuts. See, Thor is, like, just the best one in this fight, and easily my who I would want backing me up in this Avengers battle. Oh, did they just destroy the Grand Central Station there? Oh, here's the part where Thor, or the Hulk, just blatantly punches him Like, who expected that coming? I think that's just kind of like, wow. I remember that got a big laugh in the movies, and it's just, it's not even one of those classic, kind of summer movie lines, like the humor is so goofy, but that's just kind of like out of nowhere, and it was entertaining. I almost don't mind it because it's sort of kind of like such a curveball that you're like, oh, all right, I'll see that the Hulk is gets punched by or the Thor gets punched by the Hulk. Or we have Captain America, and there's a. I like the fact that his mask comes off there. Then we get to see uh, Steve Rogers out in his face. Batman never does it, but I liken that the Spider-Man films and Captain America that you get to see his face. You know what I mean? Because it's always a challenge as an actor to do that. Island of Manhattan, councilman. All right, here is my biggest problem with the movie, and maybe it'll be answered in the sequels, but how can you root for them? They have the power to totally obliterate the island of Manhattan, which, Fury is a character I really dislike because he's so dishonest and just arrogant, but there's the only moment in the film where he actually earns his chops, where he realizes that what good is a World Security Council if they can do that, it's just awful. Okay, for what I was saying about the Hulk punching Thor, this I can't abide. You have Hiddleston knocked into him, and he's like whimpering. You know who he sounds like? Take a guess. Take a guess. When I first saw it, then this might just be me being me showing my age and what kind of guilty pleasures I have, but he sounds like Marv from Home Alone. Oh, of course, here's Dr. Selvig sort of conveniently solving the problem that Loki's scepter actually had. He programmed it to be able to get in there and deactivate the Tesseract. And what I think. Here's a moment that Roger Ebert brought up in his review, and I love Roger Ebert. I miss him terribly because, like, if he was kind of like disinterested in the movie, I don't think he was disinterested in this, but like when his mind kind of wandered, he would put in fun puns and like goofiness in his reviews, and he mentioned that scene there like beat the Human Centipede. That he compared the Avengers to the Human Centipede too, and I just thought that was so like out there and so entertaining. I would just really got a kick out of it. It's one of my favorite Roger Ebert reviews because he like pretty much blatantly sums up comic book nerdom in that review. I really highly recommend you check out the review, but he said that comic book nerds will have multiple orgasms over this movie, and that like the whole idea that that there's kind of almost sort of weird sexual element to being a fan of the comic book movie, and that they need a really substantive comic book movie to show nerds the joys of sex. And I mean, I've talked to people like that, like I've known comic book fans that I thought, oh, Roger, you're speaking for me. God rest his soul. He was an original, Roger Ebert. Like I was saying, that's Fury's only heroic moment in that entire movie. And you know what I was thinking with this kind of final battle is that it reminds me almost of a Michael Bay review, a Michael Bay film done competently, because I don't mean that as an insult, although a lot of people are going to say, hey, you can't compare the two, but I think what Michael Bay does is kind of this relentless action and destruction. And I think what the Avengers does is kind of have some level of, I don't want to say stakes, but there's definitely, like I was saying earlier, there's definitely sort of a weight to the fact that they don't go off of the fact that this is not in a populated area, and that the fact that the Avengers, even with all their cartooniness, and even with all their faults as characters, is that they are trying to ultimately save human lives, that superheroes have to save people. And I think that's kind of what's forgotten in the Transformers movies and kind of those mindless action films, is that, what's the point to all this fighting? It's almost as if it were the Avengers with just the pettiness that some of the characters have in the lesser moments of the film. Alright, here we have a moment where I was saying earlier with Steve Rogers is talking to Tony about how he has to get that nuclear weapon into the sky. And here's what I think they should have done. And go with me on this. Because it might, and you might say, hey, this doesn't follow the comic books at all, you know what I mean? But here's what they could have done. I think it would take more than what was there before with Coulson, because you would have to do this the right way. But I think they should have fake killed off Iron Man at this point. I think just the whole idea that the soldier needing to put his life on the line, even if it meant giving yourself up. And I think that would have been perfect for Tony's character. But then you'd say, oh, you can't kill off Iron Man. And he's like, I don't think you could kill off Iron Man. But I think what you could have done is had the illusion of him being killed off to the point where you don't know when he's coming back. And you could set up Robert Downey Jr.'s character in the end credits sequence to maybe like Captain America 2 or Thor 2, you know what I mean? Like have him be in the end credits sequence. And then you could, go into Avengers 2. Like, I think most of us would agree that Iron Man 3 has its faults. I mean, I don't think it's totally worthless. I like some of the things it does in it, but they could have rescheduled Iron Man 3 around this, you know what I mean? And I think a lot of people would have gone out of Avengers thinking, hey, there's something. And, we've seen in Thor that, just falling through space isn't enough to kill someone in this world. It wouldn't be beyond any sort of suspension of disbelief to have Iron Man die in this. And then you have, something that powers Steve Rogers and all the Avengers in the way, the same way that supposedly Coulson does. And I don't want to say that Coulson's death in this movie is weightless, because it has some weight, but you know that Coulson isn't the hero of this movie, you know what I mean? And Tony Stark, if you had done this with Tony Stark at the end of the Avengers, that would get people interested. That would really get a lot of weight in the movie. And now our heroes have won. Please tell me nobody kissed me. Oh boy, Tony. You won that. We won. And you won that joke. I love the fact that he can't move there. Have you ever tried shawarma? Oh gosh. I wish they have to get Loki. They have to arrest him. Send him to Asgardian jail for Thor 2. And I almost wish Thor 2 was Loki, his own movie, because I would pay to see it. Like, maybe have Loki try to enslave a whole other planet. That's a good shot, but I wish that Bruce Banner had the Hulk had reverted back to Bruce Banner, even though he'd probably be holding up his pants, because I think that would have made it as stronger. Bruce Banner confronting Loki, saying, "Hey, I'm not just the animal, I'm the human being." But you know what? It's really a minor complaint, because it does kind of work in the sense that, Tony had the talk earlier with, there's a guy getting his goatee shaved at like Tony Stark and a Captain America tattoo. Gosh. I remember when this movie came out, like, what is it, like 2-3 years ago now? There's Stan Lee. But, 2-3 years ago now, but I was saying to my cousin that it was the summer of Avengers versus Batman, and I was so excited for The Dark Knight Rises, and he was so excited for the Avengers, and I'm like, we should get tattoos of Dark Knight. I'll get Dark Knight, and you get Captain America or the Avengers. But we both were like, oh, we don't know if the movie will be any good, but, I digress. Whatever. Here is the World Security Council making their last scene in the film, and would have been a good ending. Like, the movie, it had been a little bit since I had seen it. And so, maybe some of my criticisms about that aren't as valid, although I do think that there's still pawns of him, and Fury still follows them, because, he is justifying himself to them. You know what I mean? He says to them that he wants to make this statement, a promise that, and so, they are still, even if the marriage is still rocky, even if it's still rocky, that the Avengers are still the soldiers of these people. And here we go. We have the sequel, setting up the sequel, obviously, and eventually we're going to see in the mid-credit sequence, which I like. The mid-credit sequence is actually pretty good. I had to remind myself who Whedon sets up with Thanos at the end. But what I would have liked, actually, oh crap, what was I gonna say? Like, it really gets you pumped up for the sequel. That's one thing that Marvel does really well. And what I almost would say is, all these Marvel movies, just as a universe, why not do just an Avengers right away, an Avengers 2? Like, why go through all the Captain America 2, Thor 2, Iron Man 3? Why not, see what could be done? And that would be very interesting, I think. And you could almost say, hey, let's give Joss Whedon the budget that we would have given him. Like, make it the most expensive movie ever made. And I'm sure, like, it would be a risk, but I think it'd be an interesting one. And here, the movie is at an end. And I made it through it. This was the most challenging commentary I've ever done. I hope I was able to keep you interested. And, I had some problems with the movie, but you know what? It's actually a lot better than I remember it being. It's, you can't hate the Avengers. It's tremendously entertaining. It's really, there's something to be said about a movie that just wants to, make you have fun. And, it isn't a movie with substance. I think Iron Man 1 has a lot of substance and, says something about the mythos of being a hero, but, it's probably not as fun as the Avengers, that's for sure. I hope you guys enjoyed the commentary. Something a little different for the monsters, although I'm sure we'll be seeing our old friend Bela Lugosi again sometime soon. You guys have a wonderful night, and let's get excited about Captain America 2. It's coming out soon, and hopefully it's good, and that S.H.I.E.L.D., gets their comeuppance. And here we have Thanos, who sets up the next film. And I am not going to set up the next commentary. It will be a surprise.